Hey everyone, welcome back for another Deep Dive. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
All right, so today we're going to be looking at a really fascinating topic, I think. This idea of faith and works. And we're going to be looking at the book of James, specifically chapter 2 in the King James Version. And this whole chapter really digs into this idea of, is believing in God enough? Or does true faith require action?
Yeah. It's a question that people have been grappling with for centuries.
For sure, for sure. So James starts off with this story, this pretty vivid story, actually, about this rich and a poor man who are entering a gathering.
Yeah, and immediately you see this kind of contrast. The rich man is given this, this VIP treatment, ushered to the best seats. Everyone's paying attention to him, whereas the poor man is kind of, shuffled aside, ignored, almost as if he's invisible.
Yeah, and it really, just that story alone really highlights how we as humans tend to judge based on outward appearances.
Right.
We do it all the time, sometimes without even realizing it.
Oh, absolutely. It's something we all have to be mindful of because James is using this story to make a much deeper point.
Exactly. And that point is...
Well, it's that God often chooses those who are materially poor to be rich in faith, as he says.
So then the question becomes, why would that be?
Right. Well, it challenges our assumptions about what true worthiness looks like. In our society, we tend to equate wealth with success and even virtue. But this passage suggests that God values something else entirely.
Okay, so then what is God valuing? If it's not material wealth, then what is it? Humility.
That's certainly part of it, I think. It could also be a willingness to rely on something greater than material possessions.
Yeah.
A deeper understanding of human need, because when you've experienced poverty, you have a different perspective on what's truly important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it really makes you stop and think about how we treat others, especially those who may not have much in terms of material wealth.
Exactly. It encourages us to see beyond those outward appearances and recognize the inherent dignity of every individual, regardless of their economic status.
And that leads perfectly into what James calls the royal law.
Ah, yes, the command to love your neighbor as yourself.
Which is interesting because you see that idea pop up in so many different faiths and ethical systems.
Absolutely. It speaks to this universal understanding that our actions towards others should be guided by love and respect.
But then James says something that's always kind of tripped me up a little bit. He says that if you break one part of the law, you're guilty of breaking all of it.
It's a powerful statement, isn't it? And I think what he's getting at is this idea of interconnectedness, that moral principles aren't isolated. They're all intertwined.
So like even a seemingly small transgression can actually reflect a disregard for the entire system of moral law.
Exactly. It underscores the weight of our actions and the importance of striving to live in accordance with those principles.
But at the same time, there's this beautiful concept of mercy that James also talks about. This idea of mercy rejoicing against judgment.
Right. So how do we reconcile those two seemingly opposing ideas? Well, I think it's a reminder that while upholding moral law is essential, we must also acknowledge human fallibility. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fall short. So mercy and forgiveness play a vital role in balancing justice.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. And now we come to, I think, the real heart of James's argument, this idea that faith without works is dead.
It's such a powerful statement. And he doesn't just say it. He really drives the point home with this striking metaphor.
So what's the metaphor?
He compares it to having a body without a spirit. That just as a body without a spirit is dead, so faith without works is also dead.
Okay, I see that. So it's not enough to just have these beliefs in your head. True faith has to be lived out. It has to manifest in your actions.
Exactly. And to illustrate this point, Jens brings up some pretty compelling examples from the Bible.
Oh, yeah?
Well, there's the story of Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac. Right. Which I know can be a difficult story to grapple with, especially from a modern perspective. But back then, it was seen as the ultimate demonstration of faith.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it was a test of Abraham's complete and utter trust in God, even when faced with an unthinkable command.
And James holds that up as the prime example of faith in action.
Right.
Putting your beliefs on the line, even when it's incredibly difficult.
Precisely. And then he chooses another fascinating and perhaps more controversial figure to further illustrate his point.
Who's that?
Rahab.
Rahab. Interesting. Why her?
Well, because she's often depicted as a sinner, someone who lived outside the bounds of traditional morality.
Yeah.
But James highlights how she was justified by her actions. specifically her actions in helping the Israelite spies.
Right. Which just shows that even those who might be seen as flawed or living outside societal norms can still find redemption through right action.
Absolutely. It's a message of hope and transformation that anyone, regardless of their past, can choose to align their actions with their faith and experience that kind of radical change. I really like that. So putting it all together, what does this all mean for us today? Like, what's the takeaway for those of us listening?
I think the main takeaway is that true faith isn't passive. It's not just about believing certain things. It's about aligning our beliefs with our actions.
Right. So it's about how our faith manifests in our interactions with the world,
Right.
how we treat others, how we live out our values.
Exactly. It's a call to act